Hi, everyone. Welcome back to E4 Youth's Virtual Talks, a speaker series featuring creative professionals from a bunch of different industries. Today, our guest is Luigi Maldonado. Luigi earned his communication design degree from the University of North Texas, and after that, he moved to Austin and started working as an intern at Guerilla, an advertising agency. Today, 8 years later, he's now the design director and partner of Guerilla, and he focuses on illustration and has a fine arts background as well. Welcome to the stage, Luigi Maldonado.
Hey Tim. Hi everyone.
Hey, how you doing, Luigi?
Doing great. All things considered. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming and talk to me and just giving me some knowledge. So yeah, just to first start out, what's your personal background like? How'd you grow up? How'd you get to where you are now?
Well, I'm gonna try to make that short. But I was born and raised in Argentina. Um, we're an immigrant family, and I think that has a lot to do with who I am and where I'm at now. We we moved to the States in 2001 when obviously there was a lot going on that year. Right before 9/11 in Argentina, the economy collapsed incredibly, and there was turmoil and political unrest, and um, we went through. I think at one point it was like in the middle of 2 weeks, the period of 2 weeks. We went through like 4 or 5 different presidents. So that gives you an idea of like people were getting overthrown. It was just um, unsafe, and so my parents made the incredibly courageous decision to pack the bags and leave the country. So we came to the States. We came straight to Texas. We had some distant relatives who lived here, um, and that's kind of from then on. We can talk more about my education, but early on, before we even moved here, my mom says that I picked up a pencil when I was around like one and a half, and I
Oh wow.
started doodling. And um, I think she said that I tried to draw my grandfather's glasses, and you
Okay.
know she could distinguish what I was trying to do. And she already had sort of like a fine arts background. She was a kindergarten teacher too, and so she encouraged that from the very beginning. I was a fairly good kid, an introvert. I in Argentina, just about everyone knows how to play soccer,
Yeah.
and while friends would be out there kicking the ball, like I was actually inside doodling, drawing, or watching Cartoon Network.
Mhm.
And I think the 90s is kind of like 97, 98. Those were like the heyday of my childhood. Um,
Yeah.
and so and then 2001, fast forward, that's when I was around 13 years old. That's when we moved to the States. My parents and my little sister, she was 5 years old. So um, yeah, that was kind of my upbringing. It was just very family oriented, family supported, um, and a whole lot of encouragement for what I was actually having a passion for, showing it early on. I was lucky enough to have their support from the beginning.
Yeah, that's good that they identified it from the beginning and knew what to support, even because a lot of times you're kind of in the a middle ground and you don't know what's going on for a lot of people. But it's good that you kind of had that developed from the very beginning.
For sure.
Um, yeah. So, what do you do as the design director at Gorilla Suit?
Well, there's quite a bit that goes into it, and it's actually a role that I grew into over time without really knowing that I was gonna
Mm.
get into it. I, you know, picking up again from the fine arts background, I ended up going to University of North Texas for a drawing and painting major,
Okay.
because that was, and still is, a lot of what drives my design and sort of
Mm.
sensitivities of. I thought that I would just be showing in galleries, paintings, and and just drawing as a career. And I actually 2 years into it, 2 years into the college path, I started realizing that there were other things that I could do with the skill set that I had. I had friends who were already in the design program, and um, I also wasn't sure if it was a stable career path for me. I didn't want to be the stereotypical starving artist, and so I noticed that design had a lot of overlap with what I already cared about, and so um, I switched over thankfully, a lot of the classes and things that I had been doing up until that point in 2 years, um, sort of carried over to the design degree. So I wasn't losing a whole lot. But it felt like my goal was for more sort of stable, maybe smart career choice without really knowing too much about design. Um, at that point, my perception of design was from a career fair in high school, and there was a booth that was called like graphic design, and what was there was just like magazine covers, essentially. Like they were
Mm.
showing off, collateral magazines, and to me that was like the extent of what design meant, or
Yeah.
graphic design at least. But in college, I realized there was a whole lot more than that. Um, and so when I went through the program, which was uh, extensive, very difficult, but it paid off in the end. You get to pick if you're going to be a graphic designer or an
Mm.
art director the very last year.
Mm.
Um, and I actually went with graphic design because I still wanted to be involved in the making of things. I
Yeah.
wanted, if I wasn't going to have, pencil down to paper, I wanted to be the one clicking the pixels and moving stuff around. Um, but, shortly after I graduated, I moved to Austin, where my girlfriend at the time, now wife, was finishing off college at UT.
Mm.
And I started looking around for places to intern, and Guerilla took me in right away. And so, I started as an intern, and worked my way up to designer, and I was being given a lot of creative freedom, really, to kind of push boundaries, and like uh, there weren't a lot of no's, don't do this, or I just kind of went for it and unapologetically and see what stuck, right? And so over time, creative director and principal at the time, he was sort of making his transition out of his career, and so I kind of started filling some gaps there, and became now a design director. We're a small firm, so design director, art director, creative director, those kind of like meld in a way. It's semantics,
Mm.
but um, and so now I find myself in a role that I actually get to do a little bit of both graphic design and direction, um, and that's the great thing about a small shop like ours, where I get to still flex some of the design chops and muscle, but at the same time be fulfilled by seeing the output that the design team there is constantly cranking out.
Mm.
But yeah, as a design director, sorry, back to your original question, it's it's essentially overseeing the creative output and quality of the agency having the sort of the last approval.
Yeah. Okay. And just going back to your education a little bit, I feel like a lot of students are in that stage of they have an idea of a certain field. Like you just had the idea of graphic novel covers as design. Did
Mhm.
you learn more about what design really meant from college courses or more from experience? Did you have interning experience when you were at UNT, or you weren't really in the field until you got into Gorilla Suit?
No, yeah, I actually didn't really get into the actual field or interning until after I graduated, which in hindsight, I wish I would have been a little bit more aggressive about interning and getting into the real world, if you will. Um, Early on, like even, I had classmates that junior year, senior year, they were already sort of interning here and there, or and so I think that there are places out there with Guerilla Suit included, where we'll welcome students. Like you don't have to necessarily have to have graduated to be an intern. So I was not aware of the full breadth of what really design meant or what it stood for, aside from my experience at UNT. Um, and so yeah, the program there is just amazing. Like I don't think I would be here, or I would have learned as much as I have if it wasn't for going to through that program. Um, but yeah, and I hope to later show you guys in a bit, the full extent of what design meant that I didn't know um, existed essentially. But
Yeah, I think a lot of what we're trying to learn is those jobs that are in the nooks and crannies of things where you kind of think you want to do this field, but
yeah,
you gotta like kind of materialize what that'll actually mean in the real world.
yeah, and
Oh.
sometimes that's the it's tough too to be. I was lucky enough to midway through it switch to a career that was somewhat similar. Um, but it's also kind of unrealistic at that age, looking back, as soon as you graduate high school, of knowing exactly what you want to do. I think,
Mm,
um, and I know there's the added pressure of you're already getting yourself in a huge amount of debt or investing into this career, or any career really, and not knowing, when you graduate at high school, 4 years into it, you could be a totally different person, or you could switch your mind, like, halfway through it, like I did. But I think, and, I think that's okay. I, um, you're again, like, I don't think you have to know exactly what that is until you
mm,
kind of sort of get into it and figure it out. And in my case, I thought I would graduate with drawing and painting degree, but I didn't,
mm.
and in the end it worked out.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that in the end it normally works out.
Kind of
And yeah,
it.
so before we
Yeah, no, you gotta follow your gut sometimes, I think.
yeah. Yeah, and before we jump into a work example, maybe we can talk about Gorilla Suit, and what you guys do there. As a whole, you've said that it's kind of a smaller company, so you have a lot of roles, and you kind of just have to make yourself useful wherever you go. But as a company, what is Gorilla Suit's focus?
Yeah, so Gorilla Suit, the name got my attention right away when when I was looking for places to intern. um, and um, there's the name itself is packed with what it stands for. It stands for really, and the Gorilla Suit. Later, I found out Gorilla standing for sort of the art, the passion, the creative, the warfare, and then Suit, the brains behind the business and the
Mm,
strategy. And so that's something that I really wasn't exposed to in school at all. And that's kind of like getting to the real world. There is sort of a culture shock there, from what you were used to in school assignments of having these projects that would extend, months, and have the luxury of time, um, and sometimes not necessarily considering the business behind it, or what can make something sustainable, not just with aesthetics and pretty design. And so Guerilla Suit really exposed me to a lot of that early on, even as an intern. And it's something that we strive to do, even now, as much as we can. Whoever comes into the team, um, you get to really learn about the business side of it, and what can make something successful. And so we are, yeah, a relatively small shop. I think it's about 12, 13 of us now. And I don't have experience at bigger companies, but what I loved about this agency, and the reason why I'm still around, is I think has a lot to do with the size of it. And there isn't a whole lot of if you will, like bureaucratic or steps to kind of get your ideas across, or sell them through. It's just everyone sort of pitching concepts and throwing ideas out there, and there is a lot of creative license there. Even as an intern, I felt like I was getting away with stuff, and so I Guerilla Suit, again, it's a creative agency. We brand, we create logo systems, in a whole range of industries, from hospitality, like hotel, restaurant, to events, music festivals, CPG, consumer packaged goods. So, um, and it's only grown even more ever since I started. So it's the reason why I'm still sticking around.
Yeah, it's cool that you kind of landed a job that you really like, in a workplace that really has the right culture for you. And so, I would like to get your ideas on interning.
Yeah.
How did was your interning experience there? You said like you got away with a lot of stuff, which is great. But besides that, do you have any advice for people that are newly interns, like how to get the most out of their experience? Because sometimes you're kind of balancing just being a fly on the wall, but also wanting to get your hands on things a little bit, and there's boundaries there. Do you have any tips for interning in general?
Yeah, those are good points. You know, Historically at GS, the people that have stuck around and landed a position there were interns there to begin with. Um, and I think that sorry, the the that back and forth of how much to involve yourself or not, we kind of leave it up to the interns to kind of really speak up,
Yeah.
and take that extra step, because that's what I did. And sometimes I kind of want to uh, be the one sort of leading by example, because I I was kind of, again, unapologetically just kind of throwing ideas and work out there, and sometimes going beyond what was being asked for. And that's
Mhm.
something that we value a lot in at Guerrilla Suit, is being able to um, just kind of be self-sufficient. There is guidance there, but um, it is an open studio. You get to listen in and be exposed to everything that's going on. And if you raise your hand, speak up, or show your work, and show more than what was asked for, that can go a long way. And those were the roles that were later fulfilled by interns, were those that really stood out and went, beyond.
Yeah, and it's like you just have to kind of make yourself useful, because if you want to turn it to a job or something, you need to show that you are actually providing value to the company.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's really, it is, at the end of the day, it is a very competitive um,
Mm.
industry, and we don't have a whole lot of turnover.
Yeah.
People like it here, and so you really gotta kind of make yourself stand out. That said, culture fit is a big part of it. You kind of have to read the room and know when to speak up, and we will expose sometimes interns to like client facing presentations, and you gotta have professional presence there, and
Mm.
so it's how you go about communicating and showing your work that makes a big difference. But I would say, yeah, I think those people are the ones that sort of stood out in the past, however long I've been here.
Great.
Sorry, I lost track of
Yeah.
where I was going with
It's
that.
okay. Yeah, let's jump into some work examples that you have. What it looks like for when you're actually doing design direction at Gorilla Suit.
Yeah, so let me share. My goal with this is showing you at the beginning. I'm gonna sort of glance and go through quickly a few of the projects. Please feel free to visit
Mhm.
gorillasuit.com and see more of it. But I want to show sort of the breadth. I'm gonna just like breeze through it, and then
Yep.
at the end, I want to showcase a project that we all had a lot of fun
Mhm.
with a beer campaign, and that involved a larger team, because we are fairly small. But when there's a large project that comes to us, we do tap into our network of other talent, whether it's copywriting, animation, what have you. So this one sort of showcases all of that, and also why I still enjoy what I do here, because it has a whole lot of sort of fine art, and some of the
Yeah.
illustration that I was brought up with, like I got to implement some of that here. So um, feel free to stop me to ask any questions.
Yeah.
But let me see. All right.
There it is.
So yeah, this is our shop. We're on the east side, on East 7th.
Mm.
Um, have been there for quite a while now, and we love it there. But yeah, just to kind of give you a glimpse, this is, again, you can see this work in our website, but there's a lot that we've done up to this point, from um, packaging. We're going a little bit back in time here. This was a company out of San Antonio, a family-run company that makes spice flavored sugars and salts and
Oh.
spices. And they were celebrating their 30th anniversary, and so we redesigned and repackaged some of their products, but also did a sort of retro campaign where we took the idea of 80s yearbook photos and added some flair to it. And this is an example of, like, some of the ideas that at first seem just crazy, but then they get executed, and you get to see them out in the world, and that was just a whole lot of fun. So from, continuing with packaging, we did coffee, packaged coffee from a coffee shop also out of San Antonio, Merit. This is an example of a client that already had a brand, a presence, logo, but what they needed was to expand into new markets, particularly this one in Austin. And so we helped with signage. You get to know how to produce files to make neons, how to laser cut designs into a door handle, or work with sign painters to get the brand onto windows, for instance. And so this was, this was a lot of fun still. And to me, I wouldn't have thought this was part of design, or what I would have ended up helping with. And so that was just full 360 application, to then, a high-end retail store, this one out of Austin, Cape Fleet. They were looking to rebrand, but also because they were expanding into a Houston market. So along with the rebrand of a simple logo, there was all of the collateral and shipping, packaging to go along with it. And again, this contrast of what you saw earlier with Twang, and then the other end of the spectrum of this with Cape Fleet. That's where you can't really get bored in this industry. Every project is a little bit different. We had the incredible honor to work with Wendy Davis on creating this nonprofit organization and movement that stands for women equality, gender equality, and it became a platform for women to kind of spread the word. And we built these tools, website, and all kinds of social assets to get the word out and really unite women and drive change, to then experiential types of projects, events like Fun Fest, Rest in Peace. That was a festival that was 10 years old. It was essentially just a 10-year-old ongoing party every year, that ranged from music to comedy and all kinds of stuff. But this is another example of how brand can impact. It's not just a logo. It's what does it look like on stage scrims? How do you wrap a whole van that will go around town and create patches and merchandising? And we even got to work with Bill Nye.
Wow.
It started from the idea, what if every year we got to release the lineup in an unexpected sort of way, and this time was like, it started with an idea. What if Bill Nye got very nerdy and scientific and explained the science of fun? And we actually managed to do it. He agreed to it somehow. He did. I can't believe it. But and that leads to a more current festival that we were working with, Hot Luck Food and Music, which is essentially, it's actually an idea from our CEO, James Moody, who with his knowledge in music, partnered with Aaron Franklin. And so it's the music and the culinary world sort of clashing together into just this sort of backyard / tailgate festival that happens for the most part outdoors. But they are bringing acclaimed chefs from around the country to party here in Austin and just prepare food for people to try out over live fire. And so there's the food element, and there's the music shows at night. And so we created this whole website, merchandising for it, and all the way up to the badges that would actually get you into the festival. So this is another great example of how the breadth of a project, what it could take. Here's a sneak peek.
That is
So
quite the lineup.
yeah, right. And we, that again, we even got to do these promos and work with
Mhm.
local photographers. But as you got to see there was a whole lot of style being applied to it in terms of the typography that was being used, the editing and all that. That was all part of the brand.
Yeah.
And so moving on into now leading to what I wanted to show you guys. Um, Another product that this was actually from scratch created at Guerilla was Rambler sparkling water. And this was, it's been a long time coming, but a few years ago, we thought, what if we made a sparkling water?
Mhm.
The choices were limited at the time. This was beyond, so kind of before LaCroix, all you
Yeah.
kind of had was Topo, and so we started developing a water product, and now you can find it everywhere. And we're expanding the lineup, the line extension of this too, going beyond it. But um, from actually developing the water, how much bubbles to put in there, and learning about the
Oh.
filtration systems, to learning about how to produce a can and apply art to it, to merchandising it. um, we that in and of itself has been and still is an extensive project and client. um, and then there's beer. We have a lot of packaged beer products. In this case, it went beyond product. We were rebranding a brewery out of Dripping Springs, um, but also sort of just adapted a whole rebrand system to these beers that they were coming out of that would be on the shelf. At the time, they didn't have any products on shelves, and so to then this beer product, which the previous one being a craft brewery product. Now
Mhm.
this one was a classic, a Pearl out of San Antonio, goes back to 1883, and they were making a comeback. And so we looked back in history to what they had, and sort of finessed what made them so iconic, and produced a new line of product and packaging that hit the market earlier this year. And then that leads me to this project that I wanted to feature, and that's out of Carbach in Houston. They
Okay.
came to us back in 2017. So this is a great example of a client that you sort of, have a long-term relationship with.
Yeah.
And they came at a point where they were experiencing just incredible growth. I think back in 2013, I believe they were the second fastest growing craft brewer in the nation. And so they came to us to sort of recalibrate and recenter what it meant to be a Texas craft brewing company in Texas, um, and how to keep up with that growth. And up until that point, they had a design system of packaging that was semi-consistent.
Mhm.
Their brand, their logo could use some finesse. So since then, we have evolved their brand. But one of the first projects that they tasked us with was this beer called Love Street.
Okay.
And this was the first sort of big campaign that they've ever done. And let me show you a clip of one of the clips of the end results, and then let me walk you through the process of how we got there.
Yeah.
When all you need is a beer, but not just any beer, but an easy drinking, go with the flow, anytime, any mood beer, then all you need is Love Street. It's a crisp Kolsch style blonde. It comes in this trippy can here. You just open it up like this and drink it. And you just might find some good music and good friends pop up along the way. When all you need is a beer, but not just any beer. All you need is Love Street. Brewed with love in Houston, Texas by the Carbach Brewing Company.
That was the end product, but taking
Okay.
a few steps back, this was the lineup of beers that they had at the time. Some of this outdoor billboard and magazine layouts and some packaging featuring some of these beers. This was inherited design that you know for better or for worse, um, it was iconic, and it is iconic in the setup that they had with the sort of the quadrants, and the colored quadrants, and so the logo is what got refined, and then the design underneath it is something that we've evolved over time. But um, again, what you saw was Love Street, and this was the can, and we weren't, allowed to touch it. There was already sort of brand awareness,
Okay.
and a lot of love for it as it was, but they were looking to expand into new markets, new states, and
Yeah.
so they wanted to build a whole world to sort of drive it, right? And so this is a great example of, I wouldn't have thought that early on, design, I would have wanted to like go straight to the can and try to redesign it. But
Yeah.
really, when you're given parameters and some limitations, some of the best work comes out of it. And in this case, it was, okay, this is what you get. It's called Love Street. What can you do with it? And so the first question for us was, okay, what is Love Street? Like, where did that name come from? And looking into it more, and learning from how they sort of established that name, it goes back to this venue in Houston, whose original name was Love Street Light Circus Feel Good Machine. Thank God they shortened it to just Love Street. But this was one of the first psychedelic music venues in Houston, where bands like 13th Floor Elevators and ZZ Top started out. I believe ZZ Top actually debuted it here.
Wow.
And so, yeah, you already have this incredible amount of layered history and
Yeah.
wealth to kind of dive into. And so we sort of just took that and ran with it. And so we went even deeper into that era of the 60s and 70s, and we're inspired by artists like John Alcorn and Heinz Adelman, who created some of these illustrations that you're seeing here, and some very iconic campaign work, like for 7-Up and Pepsi. Again, this was back in the day, so it was very trippy and psychedelic, and so we were like, man, this is could be so much fun. What more can we do with it? So this was sort of the beginning of the campaign conception, and diving into it, we started sketching. This is where, when I look for an opportunity to draw and sketch again, to tie it back to my background,
Mhm.
this is where like I fulfill that need, and in this case, these were just very early stages, that actually allowed us to be very forgiving and flexible before going too far into colors and vectorizing the shapes, and like, what fonts am I going to use for this, knowing that this campaign would actually get implemented on a variety of mediums, from billboards to digital ads to packaging. We wanted to make sure that it was actually modular and flexible. And
Mm.
so that's why we went with these vertical layouts, and then very horizontal, almost billboard like layouts, to see sort of what stuck. And we ended up with this tagline: all you need is Love Street. Again, referencing, Beatles and that era. Um, Up until this point, this is how we were pitching the concepts to Carbach. It was all just sketches. which is something that, going back to UNT, that I learned of. It's, don't go too far. Don't show off the whole thing right away. You can cut corners with some kind of sort of loose sketches to get the idea across, and that's what they did. And they were, they trusted us with a lot of creative license here, to get to this point and say, okay, this is what we want. So what does it look like now? And that's when we started actually bringing it into Illustrator, vectorizing some of these illustrations, and implementing them through both static and animated ads. So this is where they started, coming to life. And then, of course, billboards, out of home, print ads, and even a whole fleet of vehicles, 18-wheeler to like fully wrapped vans, that I've seen around town already. And we even got to implement the art to this commemorative can for ACL Fest. And coincidentally, that year, Paul McCartney was headlining the festival. So it was just kind of a match made in heaven. And, it was a great success. And so up until that point, we hadn't touched what would be essentially radio and TV ads. And we knew that from the wealth of inspiration that we had of looking back to the 60s and 70s, there were also advertisements that were just as trippy and weird. And some of them had a lot of narration and this like voiceover that would just kind of take you through the ad and talk to you. And so we kind of wanted to simulate that. And in order to bring this distinctive voice, we knew that we needed a character and to sort of introduce Love Street and talk to you about it. And so that's where we started doodling and creating this character that never really got a name. We just called it the Dude. It just felt fitting. And once we had a character, and while the voiceover was getting cast, auditioned, and the scripts were getting sort of finessed and whatnot, we started putting together what we call an animatic. And that's taking these frames and starting to match them to a certain time and keyframes. And this was a great way to figure out any sort of weaknesses or any transitions that we needed to make before we dove even deeper, right, with the animation. So this, again, up until this point, with animation, even we were showing Carbach these very loose sketches. After we got approval, it was just full steam ahead. We started taking all the shapes and creating just an enormous library of assets. This was, a great example of once you have approval on a style, or in this case an illustration style, this is where it was kind of all hands on deck. We brought in other designers, junior designers. This would be a great example for interns, for instance, where you have sort of high level approvals, and now it's just execution and production. So you have a style that you need to emulate, and so we would give these drawings and sketches to designers, and we're like, okay, vectorize them, play with color, and because at this point we knew that we were going to take a more is more route. So from then we continued with characters, and played with, put on our wardrobe stylist hats and started playing with sort of different colors and outfits, and this guy was the winner. And this asset that you're seeing moving was actually the first asset that we saw animated with one of our partners. and he, just nailed it. And so we then kept going, creating more characters, and then we started building these keyframes, which this was all new to me up until this point. How do you, where we ended up, I didn't know how we were going to end up there, but we, again, our partner, he would take these keyframes that were built on an Illustrator, all layers, all vector, and then he started creating movement with them, and down to the details of the line weight, sort of wiggling and emulating some of the old school ads and animations. And so again, this was so fun, but it was so much more fun seeing the product come back to us fully realized.
Yeah.
And there's just one more clip that I want to show you, and that'll sort of wrap it up. We were on the hook for 2 15-second ads and 2 30-second ads, and this was the other one.
Once upon a time, there was a time when time stood still, and you could pause the hustle and bustle to unwind with good music and a cold, refreshing beer. Well, friend, that time can now be any time thanks to Love Street Cold Style Blonde. It's a crisp, easy drinking, go with the flow beer brewed with floral German hops. Hello. Well, hi there. When all you need is to kick back and give the soul some free time, all you need is Love Street. Brewed with love in Houston, Texas by the Carbach Brewing Company.
Wow.
There you go. That was Love Street.
that was really great to see. Yeah, I have a pretty good amount of questions. So it was really cool that to see the creative process of it, because you just had the word Love Street, but then you guys decided to research what that really meant, and then kind of take that inspiration and follow that along. And even in that, when you were making the visual ad, you looked back to the 60s and saw that there was narration. So then let's do a narration. I think a lot of times that seeing a full product like that as a creative, you're like, I don't know if I could ever dream that up, but it was cool to see that you didn't kind of start with the final product. You looked back at the history and you kind of took inspiration and you drew a bunch of things together and iterated to then create the final product. Like, it took a lot of steps.
Yeah. And again, I can't stress this enough. We couldn't have done it with just our existing team alone. This was a great example of how we brought in outside talent. And in fact, a big part of this project was Ario Quintans, who I believe was with you guys last week. Out of working out of Beast, a local studio. And so he helped a great deal with direction, with his experience in advertising and commercials. And so there was that aspect of it. And then on his side, the whole production team that brought in the casting crew to make sure that we had that perfect voice for that voiceover. And then the music behind it was a music and sound studio out of LA called Shindig. And again, this sort of had the same, after we established the parameter of the mood board of, that era that we were going for, they took it and ran with it. And so you kind of get this like sort of Beatles vibe without having to license a Beatles song, which would be unrealistic. And so there was a lot of work behind the scenes, but it's a great example of taking some limitations in a brief of like, this is the this is the name, run with it.
Yeah, and you guys really ran with it, and it was cool to see the extent, because I guess for me at least, I don't think of TV ads as being something that you'll create storyboards for, and you have like 5 different types of flowers. I'll pick which one
Right.
feels the best. And I guess that might come with the size of the studio. Like, you guys are small enough to really just follow the fun. Like, I just want to make a bunch of different kinds of colors for flowers today, so I'm going to do that. I don't have like this time pressure to cut corners. You can really just dream for a while and then bring it all together at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we're lucky to have clients like Harbach, where they sort of let us run loose with the ideas, and they themselves are a great group of creative people that, you know, their products, anytime you read the copy on a can, it's just full of dad jokes and puns. And so they were like, y'all do your thing. And so you don't always get that with clients.
Yeah.
So you don't always, you know, there's so many factors that sometimes limit you creatively. Sometimes for better or for worse. Again, I strive creatively when I have limitations, when I know where the parameters are, and that's part of design. What I love about it is problem solving. Here are the things that we know about it. Here are the issues. Can you solve them? And so so this was a perfect example of all stars being aligned for us.
Yeah, and it looks like we have some questions from the audience. I'll pull this up. Curious how y'all have maintained culture and collaboration virtually. Gorilla Suit seems to thrive on being together in the studio. What's changed and what's gotten better on being remote?
Hi, Megan. Long time no see. Megan was an incredible intern.
Oh, great.
Feels like ages ago, but you know, that's a great question. I think we've been lucky in this industry and what we do, and the tools that are available now to keep doing what we're doing. We haven't been back into the shop essentially since March. I'm, you know, right now working from my guest room at home, and so everyone's kind of doing their own thing at home. But you know, we take great advantage of tools like Slack, Basecamp, and Zoom to really stay in touch. Part of what makes us successful, a big part of it, is our process and day-to-day and constant communication. Back at the shop before the pandemic, you know, that we were having check-ins every day in the morning as soon as we came in, to kind of go through the what would be on our plate that day. And in an environment like we have now, where you don't know what's happening, and you're sort of, it's just an unstable environment, we really try to hold on to the things that we knew how to do well. And part of that was the communication and the back and forth like that we had at the shop. So again, we employed the tools that we had to. Every day at 9:30, we all jump on a Zoom conference and we talk it out. We kind of also, you know, make sure that we make room for just talking about how life is going personally. And then we dive into projects and like what we're doing that day. And then from then on, we stay on Slack, constantly chatting, sometimes video calls showing our work. Again, you know, the beauty of the tools that we can just share screen and bring in as many people as we want to. It's the same way that we're presenting still work to clients. We're doing it in the same way, similar to what I showed you guys today. And so thankfully, we're still being able to be collaborative. Unfortunately, not as much as we'd like to. The energy is not the same. Obviously, we love to riff off of each other's vibe when we're at the shop, but we've been able to manage, I would say, fairly well thus far.
Great. Yeah. At least you can share screen and all that. There's a lot of tools for you guys to work together, and and it's more of a communication thing that's remote and less of I have to be right next to you to to do something, which is good to have been able to pivot. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was wondering, since you lead a team, how do you balance the administrative work of leading your design team and also the creative side of it?
Yeah, I mean that's a big challenge, especially as we've grown over the years. I actually am not the only design director there. We brought in a couple years ago Ryan Thompson to help out because I couldn't keep up, and um, he's been incredibly helpful in terms of dividing and conquering. So we have so many projects at one time that multitasking becomes a big part of it, and so he'll take on a project and lead part of the team. I'll take on another project and lead the other half of the team. And so it's a great deal of balance there, because managing a team takes time. You want to make sure that everyone feels supported, that you're listening to everyone. Sometimes there are moments where there's creative that's getting sort of hitting a wall, and you got to kind of figure it out for them. While at the same time, I'm working on this other project on my own that I got to keep going on. And so um, it's a balance that's taking years to kind of figure out. But
Yeah.
again, it helps to have the team that we have to kind of support each other through it.
Yeah, great. And yeah, I guess to wrap up a little bit, do you have any advice for aspiring creatives, people that maybe are interested in design? Anything that you can say to help?
Um, just go above and beyond. Like I said earlier, this is a fairly competitive industry, but at the same time, there's a lot of room for you to stand out with your work. Build a portfolio that showcases what you want to do. What you see is what you get, kind of thing. If you want to get into more illustration um, or even animation, and you're still in school and you don't have an actual client, build something that's made up. Just make up a project and showcase it. For us, we don't have a style per se at the shop. We like to sort of adapt and mold into what the ask is per project. And so when we are looking for talent, for instance, we're looking for diversity, and that's something that I look out for when I'm looking at projects. Can you handle typography? Is there a project that has a good range of multi-page layouts? Can you draw? Which it's not totally necessary, but as you can tell from some of these projects, it can help out. And so just again, yeah, if there's a certain agency that you want to work at, or a specific part of design, really think about what it is that you want to be doing and make sure that your portfolio mirrors that, because the person looking for it's going to make the connection and really relate and be interested in you.
Yeah, that's great advice, to just do it. You don't really need people to say yes or no. If you come up with a design, just put it up and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, just to close out, do you have any plans for the future? Well, where can people find you online? What's the future looking like for you?
Well, I'm sticking around Guerilla Suit. That's all I know, because it keeps changing and evolving, and love the community, the creative community that we have here in Austin, and all the talent that we get to collaborate with. Just on a personal note, my new project is actually a second child. I have
Oh
a
wow.
4-year-old, and in the next week, or a couple weeks, we're going to have our second daughter. So I'm actually going to be focusing on family and paternity leave in the upcoming months. And again, we have such a strong team where I can feel, I know that they're going to kick ass and just, and I'm going to be just and taking a little break for a minute, but then getting back into it. But yeah, I don't know where this year went, Tim. It's just crazy.
Yeah, the months fly by when it's really locked down.
Yeah.
But thanks so much for talking to me. I feel like we got a lot of great information from you. I learned a lot, even though I'm not super familiar with the design field, but I think this was really valuable.
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for having me. And again, you guys can reach us out through guerillasuit.com. We are constantly looking for interns and talent. Send your work. I don't know when's the next time it will be safe to actually talk face to face, but we can totally, if you guys have questions, just reach out. We're here to help, especially, new people getting into the field and students. We like to sort of mentor and support new people getting into the industry. So anything we can do to help, just reach out.
Thank you so much, Luigi.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Yeah, have a great day. If you want to catch more virtual talks like these, we'll be live streaming on Thursdays at 1 p.m. and you can find them on the E4 Youth website. Thank you so much, Luigi. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.